Hello, everybody. It's the show with Ron. And today, I think we're going to try to figure out, do you retaliate or not retaliate in situations like these we have in the world? Because we have Iran send a whole bunch of missiles to Israel in retaliation for Israel's killing of an Iranian general in Syria who was overseeing the operations against Israel. And we know Iran has amassed a whole kind of circle of enemies around Israel to kind of harass them, Hamas, the hostage taking. So where does this lead? You could see how this could escalate a lot. And of course, escalation's bad, war is bad. We're all taught from a young age that war is bad. You shouldn't kill people. So let's just retreat into peace. I didn't mean to say that so negatively. I will talk about both sides of the issue here. But first, let's get to the news headlines here about this incident. Israeli response could be imminent. Iran threatens 1,500 missiles more. This was mainly internal kind of shouting by people within the Iranian media sphere, chest thumping, because you see what Iran did was, it was an escalation. It was a different sort of a thing because they've never directly attacked Israel from their own country directly before. They've always done it through the proxies through which they've surrounded Israel. So this is something different. It's even though some people say that these missile strikes were a failure and they show Iran's weakness. They absolutely do not. That's a complete misinterpretation of it. What Iran's doing is making sure that Israel doesn't become the victim, is not seen as the victim, because they see the world opinion. They see young people in Western democracies supporting Iran and actually hating on Jewish people. It's quite extraordinary. So Iran would not want to do anything too extreme against Israel because they know they're already in the correct position. And Iran's been very savvy over the years, all the way back from the Reagan administration through the second Bush administration. It's sort of outfoxing the U.S. and fooling the West in how they handled international relations. Like in the Reagan administration in the 80s, Iran revealed that backdoor deal that the U.S. thought they were all kind of private friends with Iran in the arms deals they were doing to supply the Contras, and Iran stabbed the U.S. in the back and sort of ruined the second term of Reagan's presidency. And then, of course, in the second Iraqi war, Iran sort of outfoxed the U.S. as well, because the U.S. was led to believe that Iran would be happy and cooperate with the U.S. in the overthrow and the establishment of a new regime in Iraq. They did not. Americans also thought that since the Iranians are Persians and the Iraqis are Arabs, that there wouldn't be a way for Iran to influence the internal culture, or internal religious culture of Iraq. That was all wrong as well. So those are just the two biggest examples, but Iran's been pretty good at managing these things. So it wasn't a miscalculation or mistake for Iran to shoot a lot of missiles at Israel and not have mass casualties happen. Iran would not want that at this point. That would change the narrative a bit. Right now, world leaders are calling on Israel to be restrained and not do anything at all, perhaps. Here we have Iran made a big mistake. Israel shouldn't follow. This is a kind of a weakness of the American left, that we need to have peace at any cost, that everybody always wants peace. And We just should always settle down and negotiate and step back no matter what happens to you. But see, in this case, I would posit that since it's an escalation by Iran in an unusual way, it's Iran showing we feel confident enough on the world stage that we're going to attack Israel directly, not through proxies, but from our own country, and we have the ability to do it with these missiles. And in the way they did it, knowing that they would all be, all of the missiles would be intercepted. But it still shows by doing that, they feel confident enough now to do something different, that they're going to directly attack Israel, where they didn't before. They didn't dare before. So that sort of thing has to be punished. They have to strike back in a proportional way. And proportional means like you don't go back and nuke Iran or something. You would just shoot a bunch of missiles targeted specifically at some military bases, or maybe it's some the areas where a general lives, the targeted things to show that there are consequences, so that the military cliques in Iran know that when they do something and when they've escalated like this, there will be a strong and immediate pushback, and then the next time they will be less likely to do it, not more likely. It doesn't. Things don't wind up in the way kind of we think they are, like people just mindlessly attack and use. There are huge amounts of resources, military, diplomatically, both in Israel and Iran, that have to come together to make things happen. So once military in Iran knows that there's going to be a strike back, they have to consider that. Now, I wanted to bring up some examples in the world where the West has messed up and is not struck back, has opted for peace, has opted for cooperation, and we created monsters. The first monster we created was Russia. In the last 20 to 25 years, Russia's been slowly attacking its neighbors, messing around in Chechnya, in Georgia, all kinds of military activity in the former republics. And the West didn't really have any response to that. They said, here's what we're going to do. We're going to build these pipelines over to Europe, and we're going to give Russia hundreds of millions of dollars each month. That'll surely make them settle down and not attack other countries around them. But it did the opposite. It emboldened Russia. It created the circumstances where Russia felt confident to invade Ukraine. And they did. And of course, in all of these military adventures that Russia's have, there were treaties in place that the West and NATO signed with these countries like Ukraine, saying if you give up your nukes, Russia will agree never to invade or interfere, but they did anyway. So it shows the powerlessness. When the West demonstrates the powerlessness of handling these situations, it emboldens the negative activities. Other thing is China. China has been spending years now messing around in the South China Sea, ejecting people, the Philippines from its little islands, all these disputed islands and atolls, building up islands and making little air fortresses on them, and then saying we have all the surrounding area. But what they're doing is China is getting away with their pugnaciousness. And what is the result of that? It's come to the point where China feels confident to tell the world they could take over Taiwan at any time, openly talk about that. We cause that by not pushing back, or sometimes not being able to push back against China. And now that we have these situations with China and Russia, we see breakdown of international order all over the world. Venezuela saying, hey, well, let's just take over our neighbor because we want their oil, this sort of thing. So it shows how the whole system unravels unless there's constant pressure put on it. That's why this old-fashioned, like, this is like pre-Cold War peacenik talk. And I hate to denigrate it because a lot of people genuinely believe this, and they feel that it comes from a place of logic and reason, but the West absolutely has to push back against what Iran did, the unprecedented nature of what Iran did. And this is interesting as well. Certainly there's a lot of countries, I know, in Europe that have slept under the blanket of U.S. security for a long time, and there's a wake-up call in this new era where the U.S. and its allies have let this world order unravel a bit. And particularly, there was a point in here that I want a little quote. Yeah, we need to prepare for all scenarios. We need to prepare for multiple types of attack from non-state to non-state actors. See, now this is, if you look at this century, this is the main sort of concept that has come to the fore, where in the past, if the West had a big adversary, it was the Soviet Union or China. And, diplomats from our country are in their country, and vice versa, and we all go together to little tea parties at the embassy and drink champagne together and are friendly to each other. There's all of the ambassadorial niceties. There are all of the state-to-state agreements, and on the surface there's cooperation agreements, this sort of thing. What we've had since the end of the Cold War is the unleashing of some other mainly reactionary movements. In the Middle East, we have the Al-Qaeda, we have Osama bin Laden, we have all the knock-ons in various directions from that, the stuff that happened in Iraq with an Islamic State, this sort of thing. A lot of these are reactionary movements to what is seen as the inevitable liberalization of the Middle Eastern area as it becomes more interwoven and interdependent on the rest of the world, and there's pressures put on it, social pressures, to change its rules and laws and the way it does things. So, with 9/11 in the 20th century or the 21st century now, we have non-state actors who attack us. That means they really don't have land to defend. They're interlopers like Hamas in Gaza. Gaza is the Palestinians' land, but there was a small faction that's backed by Iran that took over Gaza, Hamas. Same thing like Osama bin Laden. I mean, you can bomb where they were in Afghanistan or wherever, and they just go to another area. They don't have like a set government. They don't have that they're trying to defend. They don't have ambassadors in the U.S. that everybody has to have little tea parties with. This whole idea of non-state actors has come to the fore, and Iran is one of the major purveyors of that. They have the Houthis down in the south part of the Arabian Peninsula that are trying to disrupt shipping for them there. They have Hezbollah in southern Lebanon, who sends down missiles on Israel every once in a while. These are hard groups to really attack because they can just withdraw into the countryside. They don't have real territory in the way that we conceptualized relations with countries like the Soviet Union. But that's quite an interesting change where you have to defend from the non-state actors, and especially in this age where drones and missiles are so easy to make and deploy. So where does this lead to? So now, in the West, a lot of people are calling in governments for restraint or to do nothing at all, to just take this response, which would embolden Iran, continue to embolden the rest of the world, which sees the lack of resolve in the West. Many people see this coming, and we know this sort of thing is on the horizon. We're encouraging states to try out using a tactical nuke, because there's very little resolve to push back against misbehaving countries. If you can't stand up to any of the smaller things, it's going to embolden countries, and that we're coming to a new age. And again, every age has its challenges. This is just our challenge. And we'll get through it. And we should welcome it. These things are always happening. Don't wish for the end of the world. And so here's something, I'll end with this. This is something that is in every age. This is a headline that's evergreen, that you could see in any year, going back, probably anybody alive today, any year of their life, there was probably a headline like this. And I don't know if any of us will live to see the flying cars finally be here, but we will live to see this headline over and over. So anyway, that is a little talk about whether, I guess ultimately I've made the case we do have to retaliate. Otherwise, they're emboldened by this. And there will be the continuing unraveling of the world order as it has been for decades now. So that's some pretty heavy news. But let me show you my book. Hold on there. Here it is. Disillusioned by the promises of the modern world, young people make their way to Bangkok and then on to the furthest places they can find. There are still unknown places. And I just heard my book is now available at Kinokuniya branches at M Quarter, Central World, and Siam Paragon. I really wanted them to carry it, and it's in literature, which is cool, so this is another dream come true for me. Read it and let me know what you think, please. Thanks. That's the show with Ron. I will see you next time.